Okay, we are standing here on the Baltimore Pike, and you are looking at the Henry Spangler Farm. This farm was used as a field hospital after the Battle of Gettysburg, and there's been some things written about it online and on some various websites. I actually have another story about it today that probably not many people heard, because I have a connection to it as well. My great-great-great-grandfather's regiment, the 23rd Pennsylvania, on July 2nd, 1863, was in this direction here on the northeast slope of Little Round Top. And as they made their way in this direction, they crossed the Baltimore Pike here at the Henry Spangler Farm. In the regimental history, they recorded the incident that happened here. As they passed by, they stopped at this well that is sitting here in front of the house. And by the way, I did get permission from the owner of the house. Her name is Susan Jones. She is a friend of mine. She works at an animal hospital here where I take my cats to get shots and things like that. But as the soldiers passed, they crossed the Baltimore Pike right here, and they stopped to get a drink out of this well. And as they were drinking out of a well, an artillery shell flew right by them and struck the chimney that was up at the top of this house here. Now, there isn't any kind of like battle damage that's noticeable, though there is some bricks that seem to be out of place up there. But a shell hit the house, and the owner of the house at the time came out. It was a lady, and she came out of the house and jokingly joked with the boys that day and said, "Why don't you guys keep your fighting on the road?" Which I thought was kind of a cute story. And then, of course, they went by the left side of this house. Directly behind it, if you go behind it, would be the old Spangler lane, or the Spangler horse lane, which is right where the 23rd Pennsylvania's monument sits today. Now, a little bit about this house. The right side of the house is a log house. It was built in 1744. The left side of the house is an addition. It was built in 1819. So this is a Civil War building all through and through. But because the right side structure was built in 1744, that makes it the oldest standing structure in Adams County. This is older than the Dobbin House. This is older than any other house in Adams County built in 1744. And of course, the addition was built in 1819. Not only is this a Civil War building, but it is also a part of the Manor of Mask, which most of Adams County is. However, this house has a Manor of Mask placard on it. And the Manor of Mask was tracts of land that were warranted by John Richer and William Penn and Thomas Penn. They were the proprietors of Pennsylvania on June 18, 1741, and they did a 1776 survey where just over 43,000 acres of prime special land was called the Manor of Mask, and these tracts of land were sold, and it kind of goes back to the old English settlements. This house, like I said, the right side of it is a log cabin. The left side is all stone house. It's a beautiful house. It's in excellent shape. And again, I am walking in the backyard, but I just got done talking to Susan, and she gave me permission to do so. So I want to let everyone know that I'm not trespassing on anyone's property without them knowing. Again, the story goes that the 23rd Pennsylvania passed by this side of the house right here on July 2nd into the July 3rd of 1863 on their way to Culp's Hill, where they would do their fighting. And as they passed by and got a drink at this well over here, a shell flew by and struck the chimney of the house. Now, Susan did tell me that there is a charred mark up in the attic of the house where probably the shell burnt. And there is some blood stains in a bedroom that's been covered up, but the blood stains are still there under the carpet of when it was used as a field hospital. And just for a sidebar note, this tree that we're looking at here, it is not a witness tree. but it is a very large tree. It was planted by Susan's father in 1940, and the reason I'm pointing it out is because it is a tulip poplar tree. And we did a video on the tulip poplar tree that used to sit over on East Cemetery Hill. And just to give you an idea of how big they are, this tree is only 70 years old, and you can see it's, probably 60 feet high. So that 95-foot tulip poplar tree that was on Cemetery Hill that was a witness tree, that is kind of what it looked like back in 1863. This has been the Henry Spangler farmhouse, the oldest standing structure in Adams County, part of the Manor of Mask, and the story of the crossing of the 23rd Pennsylvania, Bernie Zouaves, crossing the Baltimore Pike at this juncture here, heading to the left side of this house and then down the Spangler Farm Lane to Culp's Hill on July 2nd, 1863, on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Okay, we are here just west of the Emmitsburg Road at the Henry Spangler Farm. This farmhouse, which was originally a log structure, was built in 1820 by a man named George Plank. It was purchased by Spangler in 1862, just a year before the battle. And this farmstead and barn was a staging area for Confederate attacks on July 2nd and 3rd, 1863. Of course, on July 2nd, 1863, just in the distance over here, you can actually see the Sherfy farm. And if you go back and watch my video on the 114th Pennsylvania Zouaves, my video on Barksdale's attack, and even my video on the peach orchard, with the salient, you can get a little bit of an idea of the staging that went on here on July 2nd. On July 2nd, of course, the attack from the Confederates from this line of trees, Barksdale's attack being nearby here into the Union Center, I'm sorry, the Union flank. The third day, the staging area focused on the Union Center over here at the Copse of Trees, which is just in the distance. Now, the Spangler farm has went through some restoration. The original barn was burned on July 2nd, 1863, as was the barn over at the Sherfy Peach Orchard, where soldiers from the 114th Pennsylvania Zouaves burned alive in that barn. Now, this is also the site of a lot of burials. There was approximately 30 burials behind the house in the fields on the north side of the house, the north being this direction here, near the edge of the woods, which today that woods is known as Spangler's Woods. This is a house that not many people get to come up to close up, so we're walking by here on this beautiful day, and you can see there is a dirt road that leads up to it. But not many people get to go close up on this house. The only time that really I see people close to this house is if they're doing one of the horse tours. You can see that they have horse tours that come by this property here. In fact, one passed by here not too long ago. But we're going to take a couple minutes here and just look at this house and barn. The barn is a rebuilt structure. As I said, the original was burned on July 2nd, 1862. Now, of course, this was a staging area on July 2nd and 3rd of 1863, rather. And on July 3rd, 1863, as Longstreet's assault happened, there are two different stories about General George Pickett. Some men that were with George Pickett claim that he was here at the Spangler Farm barn, where he watched his troops going into battle. Other stories is that he was across the street over here at the barn that's directly in front of us at the Emmitsburg Road. I probably would side with the story he was ahead of us at the barn at the Emmitsburg Road there. That's a little bit closer to the objective point of the Copse of Trees. And knowing Pickett wanting to go into battle and waiting to go into battle, it's more likely he was at that barn. Not to say that he and his troops didn't pass by this property here as well. The burials that that happened were just beyond these outbuildings on the north side, and they were men from the 107th Ohio, there were men from the 137th New York, and there were some Confederate soldiers. Two of the men of the 137th New York were only 18 years old. And of course, the attack of July 3rd, Pickett's Charge as we know it, happened behind this barn here. The results of the infantry leaving Spangler's Woods, heading in that direction toward the copse of trees. The step-off was from that direction over there at Spangler's Woods after 2 hours of artillery fire, which was too much artillery fire. The artillery fire was only supposed to go for about a half an hour, and while the smoke from the artillery fire cleared, it would screen the infantry advance to the Emmitsburg Road. Of course, that artillery fire went way too long, for 2 hours, before Alexander Porter, in charge of the artillery, went to Longstreet and said, if you don't advance the infantry now, I won't have enough artillery to support the infantry advance. And at that time, Longstreet stepped off the attack. Again, this has been the Spangler Farm here, about 300 yards west of the Emmitsburg Road, which was used as the staging area on July 2nd and July 3rd of 1863. This has been Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook, Homes on the Battlefield, the Henry Spangler Farm that he purchased in 1862, 1 year before the battle. Okay, this is part 2 of the Spangler Farm video. We're actually walking along the dirt trail that is behind the farmstead of the Henry Spangler Farm off the Emmitsburg Road, and we're going to be passing by a couple of witness trees that I wanted to point out. So I decided to do it in part 2 of the Spangler Farm video. Again, not many people get to come out here because it's kind of off the beaten path. It's away from the Emmitsburg Road. It's about 300 yards behind the Emmitsburg Road, and it's probably 300 yards from Confederate Avenue, stuck in the middle. Of course, Spangler's Woods here in front of us obstructs the view of the rear side of the property, being the barn. And because the Emmitsburg Road dips down, you can not really make out the house real well when going by the Emmitsburg Road. So you really got to get up close like we did in part 1. Now this area here in our right, this wooded area, is actually the step-off for Longstreet's assault. This is Spangler's Woods, and this is where some of the 15,000 soldiers on July 3rd, 1863, stepped off after the artillery barrage and headed east in that direction in front of us, just over that ridge, the Emmitsburg Road, and of course the high water mark of the Confederacy over at the copse of trees. As we walk back here in the woods, there's a few witness trees. One of them is the one right in front of us. It's a very large tree here that is a witness tree. It does have a Park Service tag on it. Several witness trees that were standing here a few years ago have since fallen, so there's not too many of them left. Another one is here just to our right. And then as we proceed here, we're going to cross a run, a small run, and just beyond that run is a third witness tree here on the Spangler path, and that would be that large one here just beyond the run. These three trees here are, of course, witnesses to the Battle of Gettysburg. They're witnesses to both the July 2nd attack and then, of course, Longstreet's assault on July 3rd. These trees are all three in very, very good shape. Witness these events and are here for us to see today. And then, of course, as we go out to the road here, which is Confederate Avenue, on the right-hand side in the woods is a fourth witness tree. I'm not close enough to really get a good bead on it yet, so we'll wait a second here. But we're going to finish walking out to Confederate Avenue, and if you desire to come and visit the Spangler farm, this would probably be the best way to come up to Confederate Avenue, pull off the side of the road, and then take the rear walking trail back to the property. Now, in the distance, I'm going to try to center it. There's a fourth witness tree that sits over here. And it's that real large one right in the center of the frame, right about here. That tree right there, that's another witness tree to the Battle of Gettysburg. All four of these trees are just off this Spangler farm lane that heads back. This has been part 2 of the Henry Spangler farm and farmstead at Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook.